Most people wake up every morning feeling busy, tired, and distracted, yet deep inside they feel something far more dangerous than exhaustion. They feel out of control. Their days run them. Their phones command them. Their past mistakes whisper to them. Their future feels heavy and uncertain, and slowly, without realizing it, they begin to believe that this is just how life is. But here's the truth Jim Rohn taught us. Life doesn't get out of control on its own. It only follows the instructions you give it consciously or unconsciously. You see, control is not lost in one dramatic moment. It slips away in tiny decisions, skipping the small disciplines because they feel uncomfortable, saying yes when you should say no, waiting for motivation instead of acting on commitment, letting emotions decide what only principles should decide. And day by day, the gap grows between the life you are living and the life you know you are capable of living. But the moment you realize this, something powerful happens. Because if your life is shaped by your choices, then your choices can reshape your life. You don't need a new country, a new boss, or a new miracle. You need a new standard. Control begins the second you decide that excuses are no longer acceptable currency in your life. Jim Rohn used to say that success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day, while failure is a few errors in judgment repeated daily. That means control doesn't come from doing something heroic once in a while. It comes from doing the basics when you don't feel like it, reading when others scroll, planning when others react, acting when others wait. That's how authority over your life is rebuilt, brick by brick, habit by habit. The world will always try to take control from you. It will tell you what to think, what to want, and what to fear. If you don't consciously choose your influences, someone else will do it for you. And most people are living under borrowed beliefs, borrowed fears, and borrowed limitations. Gaining control means deciding whose voice matters. It means filtering what you consume, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, because what you feed your mind today becomes your reality tomorrow. Another hard truth is this: you cannot control everything that happens to you, but you can control your response to everything that happens to you. That's where personal power lies. Two people can face the same setback. One grows bitter, the other grows wiser. One quits, the other adapts. The difference is not circumstances, it's control over attitude, and attitude, once mastered, becomes a weapon against chaos. Discipline is often misunderstood as punishment, but Jim Rohn framed it perfectly. Discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. Every act of discipline you practice today saves you from 1,000 regrets tomorrow, and every discipline you neglect today quietly hands control over to stress, anxiety, and randomness. Either you design your life or you live by default. Control also returns when you stop negotiating with your lower self. The voice that says, just this once, you deserve a break, start tomorrow. That voice has stolen more dreams than failure ever could. The moment you start honoring the promises you make to yourself, your confidence rises, and with confidence comes clarity. With clarity comes direction. With direction comes control. Time is another battlefield. Most people don't manage time. They allow time to manage them. Gaining control means planning your days before they plan you. It means deciding what matters before urgency tricks you into believing everything matters. When your priorities are clear, distractions lose their power. And finally, control comes when you accept full responsibility for your life. Not with guilt, but with ownership. Responsibility is not heavy, it is liberating. Because the moment you accept that you are the architect, you are no longer a victim, you become the designer, and designers don't complain about the blueprint, they improve it. You don't need to change your whole life today. You just need to take control of the next decision, then the next habit, then the next day. Small wins stacked consistently create unstoppable momentum, and one day you'll look back and realize that the life you once felt trapped in is now the life you command. That's not motivation, that's personal power. Most people think losing control of their life happens in one dramatic moment, like a sudden failure or a catastrophic decision. But the truth is far more subtle and far more dangerous. Control isn't something that vanishes in a single instant. It slips away quietly, almost invisibly, in the tiny choices we make every day. Each compromise, no matter how small, chips away at our ability to steer our own destiny. Every decision that we postpone, every discipline we ignore, every someday we cling to, becomes a thread in the fabric of a life that slowly unravels. People live under the illusion that life is uncontrollable, that they are at the mercy of circumstances, others' actions, or bad luck. But the reality is that most of us are surrendering control piece by piece without even realizing it. It begins with small compromises. You tell yourself, it's just one more episode, and suddenly hours of your life are surrendered to distractions that don't serve you. You promise to wake up early, to exercise, to read, to study, to practice, and then you postpone it, telling yourself, I'll start tomorrow. Each time you give in to ease over effort, comfort over discipline, convenience over commitment, you surrender a little control over your life. And you start to normalize that surrender. The problem is not that you make a mistake. The problem is that you make the same mistake repeatedly, and repetition transforms a one-time compromise into a pattern of surrender. Discipline is one of the most misunderstood ideas in personal development. Many think discipline is punishment, a restriction, a limitation imposed from the outside. But discipline is actually freedom, the freedom to live life on your own terms. When you ignore your disciplines, when you push away the practices that strengthen you, you are essentially handing over the steering wheel to circumstances. Life is full of external forces beyond our control, but our inner disciplines, our habits, routines, and values are where true control resides. Neglecting them is like building a ship with holes in the hull and then wondering why it drifts with every current and wave. Every morning you skip your priorities, every commitment you avoid, every task you defer quietly reduces your influence over your own direction. Decisions delayed until someday are another subtle thief of control. People say, I'll start eating healthy someday. I'll start saving money someday. I'll start pursuing my dreams someday. But someday is an illusion. The truth is that control is gained in the present moment, not in some vague future. Every choice you delay is a choice you surrender. Every later weakens your grip on life. The longer you postpone action, the more life accumulates outside your influence, and the harder it becomes to reclaim control. The problem is compounded by the belief that major transformations require massive, immediate leaps. The reality is that control is restored gradually through a series of consistent, deliberate, and often small actions. Our minds are clever at justifying surrender. We convince ourselves that small compromises are harmless, that delaying action won't matter, that missing discipline occasionally is acceptable. And while one isolated compromise may feel insignificant, The danger is in the pattern. The quiet accumulation of these choices creates a life that feels chaotic, directionless, and overwhelming. You wake up one day and realize that your calendar, your responsibilities, and even your emotions seem to dictate your behavior instead of the other way around. But the awakening doesn't need to be terrifying. It is also liberating, because once you see the mechanisms of surrender, you can reverse them intentionally. Regaining control begins with awareness. You must identify the small compromises, the ignored disciplines, and the delayed decisions that have been quietly dictating your life. Awareness without action, however, is not enough. Once you see the patterns, you need to intervene, no matter how small the intervention may seem. Waking up an hour earlier than usual, committing to one meaningful habit, making one decision you have been postponing. All of these are acts of reclaiming control. Each deliberate choice strengthens your ability to make the next deliberate choice. Just like a muscle, control grows stronger with consistent use and weakens with neglect. Another key is understanding the cost of surrender. Every time you compromise your values, delay your action, or ignore your disciplines, there is a hidden toll. Dreams grow dimmer, opportunities slip away, confidence erodes, and stress accumulates. The cumulative effect of small concessions is often far more destructive than a single catastrophic failure, because it goes unnoticed until the life you are living is far from the life you were capable of living. Recognizing this cost is crucial. It turns awareness into urgency. The subtle erosion of control becomes a wake-up call, a call to deliberate action, to intentional living, and to reclaiming the reins of your own life. The truth Jim Rohn emphasized is that life responds to your consistent patterns of behavior, not to random bursts of effort. Small, intentional choices add up, while small compromises quietly subtract from your power. Reclaiming control is not about grand gestures. It is about daily victories. It is about deciding what matters, honoring your commitments, and refusing to let comfort, fear, or procrastination steal your ability to shape your own life. Every moment you take responsibility for your actions, every time you resist the temptation to surrender to convenience, every decision you make today instead of postponing it to someday, restores a piece of control that was quietly slipping away. Control is not a myth. It is not reserved for a select few. It is always available, waiting for you to take it intentionally. The first step is recognizing the small ways you have given it away. The next step is acting consistently, deliberately, and courageously. And as you do, the quiet erosion is replaced by quiet strength. The chaos is replaced by clarity, and the life that once felt out of reach begins to respond to your choices, your discipline, and your resolve. For many people, the idea of taking control of life seems intimidating because they are still carrying the weight of blame. They blame their past for their present struggles. They blame other people for their disappointments, and they blame circumstances for their setbacks. This blame creates an invisible cage, convincing them that they are powerless, that they are victims of forces beyond their control, and that life is something that happens to them rather than something they shape. But the truth Jim Rohn taught us is that the only thing that ever truly limits us is our willingness to accept responsibility. Until we stop pointing fingers, until we stop rehearsing excuses, we remain locked in a cycle of surrender, handing over the very power we think we lack to outside forces that never held it in the first place. Blaming is seductive because it feels like a shield. When you blame your upbringing, your boss, your economy, or your health, you create a story in which you are justified in doing nothing, in waiting, in accepting less than what you are capable of achieving. The problem is that the shield is also a prison. Every excuse you repeat, every justification you craft, is a brick in the wall separating you from your own potential. While you are busy telling yourself, "It's not my fault," life keeps moving forward, opportunities pass, and your dreams remain unclaimed. The longer you cling to blame, the more distant control feels, and the more trapped you become in patterns you cannot change. Because you've given your power away voluntarily, every single day. Owning your daily choices is the exact opposite of blame. It is not easy. In fact, it is one of the most courageous acts a human being can undertake. Ownership means acknowledging that while you cannot control every circumstance, you can control how you respond. Ownership means recognizing that your decisions, no matter how small, accumulate into outcomes that shape the quality of your life. When you start claiming responsibility for your habits, your words, your actions, and your mindset, you are no longer a passive passenger. You are the driver. And drivers, unlike passengers, choose their direction, their speed, and their destination. This process begins with awareness. Awareness is not guilt or shame. It is the honest acknowledgement that you have been giving away power in subtle ways. Awareness allows you to see how blame has been quietly dictating your emotions, your energy, and your choices. Once you see it, you can confront it. You can say to yourself, "I have been pointing fingers, but now I choose to point at myself first. I will take responsibility for what I can control." That single shift in perspective is transformative because it replaces helplessness with action, excuses with accountability, and stagnation with momentum. The beauty of owning your choices is that it reveals a power that was never truly lost. Many people think they need to wait for permission, for a change in circumstances, or for luck to intervene. But power has always been inside you. The ability to decide how to spend your time, how to treat people, how to think, and how to act has never been taken away. It was simply overshadowed by distraction, doubt, and the habit of blame. When you stop blaming, you stop waiting. You stop reacting. You stop giving external forces authority over your life. And when you do, control doesn't feel like a distant dream. It feels like a natural state that has been yours all along. Ownership also breeds clarity. When you stop looking outward for reasons, you start looking inward for solutions. You start asking, "What can I do today that moves me forward?" instead of, "Why did this happen to me?" Every decision becomes intentional, every action purposeful, and every moment a building block toward the life you desire. With clarity comes confidence, because when you understand that your results are the direct outcome of your choices, you no longer feel like a victim of randomness. You understand that your life is not about luck. It is about direction, effort, and consistency. Another powerful aspect of owning your daily choices is that it empowers you to repair and improve, not just react. When you blame, you stagnate. You justify an action, you repeat old patterns, and you limit your growth. When you own, you create a feedback loop of improvement. You can analyze what went wrong without judgment, learn from it, and implement changes immediately. Every small decision taken with responsibility compounds into massive transformation over time. This is the secret of extraordinary people. They don't wait for perfect conditions. They own their actions in imperfect conditions and shape their future intentionally. Owning your choices also strengthens your relationships and your environment. When you stop blaming others for your problems, you stop projecting negativity, resentment, or frustration outward. You engage with people honestly without demanding they fix your life for you. You stop being reactive and start being proactive, which not only elevates your own life, but also inspires those around you. Responsibility is contagious. When others see someone consistently owning their choices, they are reminded of the power they themselves hold. Finally, taking ownership liberates you emotionally. Blame keeps you trapped in anger, regret, and frustration. Responsibility frees you to move forward. It allows you to acknowledge mistakes without being crushed by them, to face challenges without being paralyzed by fear, and to create the life you want without waiting for permission. The power you reclaim is not theoretical. It is practical, everyday, actionable power. It is the power to wake up each morning and choose deliberately, to act intentionally, and to shape your future through the small, consistent, responsible choices you make right now. Owning your daily choices is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong commitment to yourself and your future. Every day, every decision, every action is an opportunity to reclaim a little more control, to strengthen your habits, and to reinforce your direction. And the more you practice this, the more your life becomes a reflection of your values, your goals, and your vision rather than the mistakes, limitations, or manipulations of the past. The freedom that comes from ownership is profound, exhilarating, and life-changing. Many people misunderstand the concept of control. They think it requires force, power over others, perfection in behavior, or the ability to manipulate circumstances to their favor. They imagine control as a rigid grip on every detail of life, a flawless execution of every plan, or an unbroken streak of success. But the truth, as Jim Rohn taught, is that control has nothing to do with perfection and everything to do with direction. Control is not about how hard you push or how strong you seem. It is about where you point your energy, how you guide your attention, and the choices you consistently make in alignment with your highest priorities. It is about steering your life intentionally, no matter what external chaos swirls around you, and refusing to let randomness dictate your path. Direction is the essence of control. When you have direction, minor setbacks don't derail you, distractions don't confuse you, and other people's opinions don't determine your mood or your decisions. Direction comes from clarity of purpose and alignment with your values. It means knowing what matters most, understanding your priorities, and having a vision of the life you want to build. Without direction, even the strongest efforts can scatter and dissipate. You may appear busy, but without purpose, your actions are like a boat drifting in a storm. Movement without progress. True control is not measured by the amount of motion, but by the accuracy of your course. Deciding who you listen to is one of the most crucial acts of control. Every day, the world offers endless opinions, advice, criticism, and guidance. Some of it is valuable, but much of it is noise. People surrender their power when they allow every voice, every trend, and every distraction to shape their thinking. Control comes when you filter input carefully. You decide whose wisdom matters, whose counsel is aligned with your values, and whose opinions are irrelevant to your path. When you become selective about what you absorb mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, you reclaim enormous power. Your energy is no longer drained by voices that don't serve you, and your actions are guided by principles, not popularity or panic. Equally important is deciding what you tolerate. Many people believe control comes from saying yes to opportunities, people, and demands. But true control comes from the opposite, knowing when to say no. When you tolerate mediocrity, negativity, or distraction in your life, you slowly relinquish control over your time, focus, and mental clarity. Every time you accept less than you deserve or allow others' poor choices to influence your behavior, you cede power over your life. Learning to set boundaries, to protect your priorities, and to refuse what undermines your direction is not selfish. It is essential to living intentionally. Control grows when you guard your space, your time, and your attention with discipline and courage. Another often overlooked aspect of control is how you show up when no one is watching. Many people assume that life is about performing for others, seeking validation, or maintaining appearances. But real control is forged in private. It is built in the small moments of consistency, honesty, and effort that nobody else observes. The habits you maintain when no one is judging, the integrity you practice when no one is applauding, and the choices you make when the world is silent are the true measures of mastery. The private victories compound into public success, and the internal discipline you cultivate becomes a source of confidence, resilience, and unshakable direction. Control is also about managing your internal environment. You may not be able to control the weather, traffic, economy, or other people's actions, but you can control your mindset, your focus, and your energy. You decide how you interpret challenges, how you respond to setbacks, and how you prioritize your efforts. External chaos cannot rob you of internal clarity unless you allow it. When your internal direction is fixed, external turbulence becomes a test rather than a trap. Every challenge, every obstacle, every moment of uncertainty becomes an opportunity to practice the discipline of control, to refine your focus, and to reinforce your values. A key truth that many overlook is that control is cumulative. It is not a single heroic act, but the result of countless daily choices aligned with direction. Every small habit, every deliberate action, every boundary enforced, every moment of private discipline adds up. You may not feel it immediately, but over time, these choices build momentum, creating a life that flows according to your design. Control does not demand perfection. It demands persistence. It does not require force. It requires clarity. It does not depend on circumstances. It depends on consistent alignment with your vision, values, and purpose. The paradox of control is that it increases freedom. Many people resist responsibility because they confuse it with restriction. But the more intentional you are, the more boundaries you enforce, the more clarity you cultivate, and the more discipline you exercise, the freer you become. You are no longer tossed by external events, distracted by irrelevant opinions, or trapped by poor habits. You move with purpose, act with authority, and make choices that reinforce the life you are building. Control liberates rather than constrains because it is about directing your own life rather than reacting to everything around you. Finally, embracing control in this way transforms your identity. You start to see yourself as the architect of your life rather than a passenger. You begin to internalize the idea that direction, choices, and consistency matter far more than luck, perfection, or force. Your confidence rises because it is grounded in action, not chance. Your resilience grows because it is anchored in principles, not circumstances. And your influence expands because when you live with deliberate direction, you inspire others to do the same. The essence of control is not domination or rigidity. It is thoughtful, intentional, principled direction that shapes your life in alignment with your highest vision. So, let me ask you something. How long are you willing to let life just happen to you? How long will you sit on the sidelines, blaming circumstances, complaining about people, and wishing the past had been different? I want you to picture yourself a year from now, looking back on this exact moment. Will you see a life shaped by excuses, or a life shaped by the choices you make today? The truth is, no one is coming to hand you control. No one is going to hand you the keys to your destiny. That power has always been in your hands. It has always been within your reach, and it is only waiting for you to claim it. Imagine for a moment that you are the captain of a ship. Storms will rage, waves will crash, winds will push you off course. But the difference between a life in chaos and a life in control is not the weather. It's your hand on the wheel. Every small decision you make, every discipline you practice, every yes or no you commit to is like tightening your grip, steering your vessel, and deciding your direction. You may not control the sea, but you control your navigation. That is freedom. That is power. That is control. I hear you saying, but life is complicated. I have responsibilities. I make mistakes. I get tired. And I am not denying it. Life is complicated. Life is messy. Life will test you every single day. But here's the secret. Control is not about being perfect. Control is not about never failing. Control is about direction. It is about making a decision to refuse mediocrity. It is about deciding whose voice matters, what you allow into your mind, and how you respond when no one is watching. Control is about building a life that moves toward your vision, even when chaos surrounds you, even when the world doesn't cooperate, even when you feel weak. That is the kind of control that transforms lives. Let me be blunt. The moment you stop blaming, the moment you stop pointing fingers, the moment you stop rehearsing excuses, you begin to step into your power. It doesn't matter what the world has done to you. It doesn't matter what mistakes you made yesterday. What matters is what you choose to do right now. Jim Rohn said it perfectly. You cannot change your destination overnight, but you can change your direction overnight. Every action you take today is a course correction. Every habit you build is a compass. Every moment of self-discipline is a wind that fills your sails. Ask yourself this: whose opinions are you letting dictate your path? Whose words are shaping your self-worth? Who are you listening to when you doubt yourself, when fear whispers, when laziness tempts you to give up? You have a choice. You can let every negative voice, every critical comment, every past failure control your mind, or you can choose deliberately who you let into your inner circle and whose advice you follow. Choose wisely, because your attention is your most valuable currency. Where your attention goes, your life will follow. And what about tolerance? What are you allowing in your life that holds you back? What distractions, what negativity, what mediocrity have you accepted because they were easy, because it was polite, because you didn't feel strong enough to say no? Every time you tolerate less than excellence, you weaken your control. Every time you protect your priorities, enforce boundaries, and refuse what does not serve your purpose, you regain power. It is not selfish. It is essential. It is the only way to live intentionally, the only way to steer your ship with authority. Now think about how you show up when no one is watching. This is the true test of control. Your habits, your character, your integrity, they all reveal themselves when the spotlight is gone. Every time you choose effort over comfort, consistency over procrastination, honesty over convenience, you are claiming control of your life. Nobody may notice today, but the compound effect of those choices is unstoppable. The life you are building silently in private will eventually become visible, undeniable, and remarkable. I want you to visualize your future self, the person who wakes up each morning with clarity, focus, and purpose. The person who makes decisions with confidence, refuses excuses, and navigates life with unwavering direction. That person is not fictional. That person is you. That life is waiting. But it cannot arrive if you remain passive, distracted, and reactive. It requires courage, it requires commitment, it requires choosing control over chaos, direction over randomness, and responsibility over blame. Here's what I want you to remember. Control is always available. It is not a gift, a privilege, or a stroke of luck. It is earned one decision at a time. It is reclaimed one habit at a time. It is strengthened by every choice you make to act with intention, to honor your commitments, and to refuse surrender. You do not need a perfect past, a perfect plan, or perfect conditions. You need a clear direction, a deliberate mindset, and the courage to act. You need to say, "This is my life. I am taking control. I am steering my ship. I am deciding my course." So start today. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today, make one choice that aligns with your vision. Take one action that reinforces your values. Say no to one distraction, one excuse, or one negative influence. Each small step will build momentum. Each deliberate choice will reclaim power that has been quietly slipping away. And as you continue, you will discover a life that is no longer dictated by circumstances, other people, or the past. A life that you command, a life that responds to your direction, a life that reflects the best version of yourself. You have the power, you have the choice, you have the direction. The question is, will you claim it? Will you step into control? Will you live intentionally, boldly, and relentlessly? The world will test you. Life will challenge you. Fear will whisper. Laziness will tempt. But remember, the greatest victories are not won by those who never struggle. They are won by those who decide, in the face of struggle, to steer, to act, to persist, and to reclaim the power that has always been theirs.